Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. I'm sorry if this video feels like it's being rushed. It's because I have to leave my setup soon. I have some places to go and well, let's just get started.
The year is 1917. Fighting rages on the eastern...
We are reacting to the Cold War Oversimplified Part 1 because I didn't think a lot of you got my community post, but I'm just gonna react to it. We're starting here. I think they're gonna go through like the Soviet Union, like how the Soviet Union becomes one thing.
In front of the Bring Me This Man. Got it. Found him, sir.
So this is where they got Lenin. They're kind of just going through trying to grab him and being ready. Yeah. Let's keep watching.
And his mates would create an internal crisis. And create an internal crisis they did. The government was overthrown, and
revolution, famines and stuff after he dies. You guys should all know this by now. It's pretty simple stuff.
Lenin was in charge. He immediately pulled out of the First World War, made the country communist, started a 3-year-long civil war, got shot, broke the economy, caused a famine, and then he died. On his deathbed he said, "Hey man, tell whoever's in charge of giving people jobs not to let that jerk Stalin become the next leader. By the way, who did I put in charge of giving people jobs? That would be Stalin, sir."
Yep, so he didn't want Stalin because Stalin didn't like him that much, and, well, communism. Yeah, it's just communism way, you know.
Stalin was a rising force in the Communist Party. He still had some opponents, but conveniently, all of them were arrested or disappeared. So that was lucky.
Whoa.
And so Stalin took over. He implemented
Crazy.
his 5-year plans, which transformed the country from an agriculture-based economy to an industrial one. And like Lenin before...
Also, I want to just say, I'm going to give all the credit to Oversimplified here. Don't copyright me. All of the credit goes to Oversimplified. He was the one that made these videos, and hey, I'm gonna make a community post about part 2, but if you guys want me to do part 2, please leave a like on that community post.
For him, he reigned with terror. Anyone who dared criticize or oppose him would either be killed or left to rot in the horrendous Soviet work camps. Then a short man with a silly mustache tried to take over the world, punched the...
World War II reference, pushes them all the way to Moscow, I'm gonna guess, and then back
the Russians all the way to Moscow, and then the Russians, with some help from their faithful ally, the Winter, punched them all the way back to Berlin. At this point, being allies, America, the UK, and the Soviet Union were good chums. They held a couple of conferences near the end of the war to decide what would happen next. Hey Stalin, after all your trials and tribulation, you must be pretty happy to be standing here in Berlin. Tsar Alexander made it all the way to Paris.
This is kind of referencing he wanted to take over Europe and the world.
Hey, just give me a second. Hey man, I think something's up with...
He's about to tell him about the bomb. Stalin says, "Oh yeah, my spies know," and all that. Here, I'm gonna skip this because... Alright, and...
Want you to let them all hold elections. Oh yes, of course.
This is talking about he takes over Eastern Europe.
Elections. And these elections will be free and fair, right? Oh yes, certainly. Free and fair. Definitely free and fair. Communist, 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 communist. If that's not free and fair,
communism.
I don't know what it is. Throughout Eastern Europe, Soviet puppet governments were established as a buffer zone between the USSR and the West, with Churchill proclaiming an Iron Curtain had descended across the continent. The relationship...
The Iron Curtain blocked everything from happening between West and East, and, well, you know what happens. That they don't like each other anymore. And the UK is sad.
Between the old allies was deteriorating fast. Over the next few years, the British intervened in the Greek Civil War to prevent a communist
had to stop so Greece could stay democratic.
Takeover. In Turkey, the Russians began demanding more control of Turkey's sea access routes, which prompted the US to send their largest battleship to Turkey for a friendly visit. After World War II, Iran was now occupied by both the Soviets and the British, with an agreement to both pull out once the war was over. The British pulled out. Stalin was like, you know what? I think I might stick around. All in favor of kicking Russia out of Iran? You want to know something?
You guys
suck. Pressure from the UN forced the Soviets to leave, and with the establishment of NATO, the Soviets...
I watched this once because one of my videos, when I tried making it, failed, and it didn't, and I didn't.
Had no doubt that the West was out to encircle and destroy them. And America announced the Truman Doctrine, in which they basically said,
This is the start of what I think is the start of the Cold War, the Truman
Those
Doctrine.
guys are not cool, cannot be trusted, and we will do everything we can to prevent the spread of communism around the world. Many view this moment as the official declaration of the Cold War. Back in Europe, everyone was living in a post-apocalyptic void brought on by the Second World War. Cities reduced to rubble, not enough food. It was terrible. This is great. The more they suffer, the more likely it is they'll turn to communism. Dude, you're really messed up. What's wrong with you? My father used to punish me severely. America realized what was going on and quickly made a move. Under the Marshall Plan, they sent $12 billion to Western Europe for its economic recovery. The countries of Stalin's Eastern Bloc looked on with envy. Hey, Czechoslovakia,
Yep.
you want to come get some economic aid? Yeah, but I have to check with my mom first.
Hey, Mom. Nope.
Sorry, America. I can't come. This was a full-on economic
Aw.
battle raging between capitalism and communism in Europe. If the Western nations developed faster and better than the East, that would be a defeat for Stalin. So he set up his own rival economic recovery plan, which he called Comecon, and he also set up Cominform, which gave him more political control.
So they are kind of trying to, they're trying to control more. It's because Yugoslavia was a country. They're trying to keep Yugoslavia a country, and they're just trying to control.
Over the Eastern Bloc, but nowhere did this economic battle rage harder than in the city of Berlin. Caught over 100
This
miles
is
behind
really
Soviet lines,
populated,
the city
so
had been
this is
divided
gonna
up
be a big
between the
deal.
Allies, and the Western segments were still under Western control. East Berliners could travel freely to West Berlin, see the economic prosperity, and think, maybe this communism thing ain't so great after all. I'm gonna have fun tonight.
I just found a tool to skyrocket your YouTube Shorts views. YouTube Shorts are fire right now.
You're home late. Oh, Stalin. I was just out with my friends. Friends? You stink of capitalism! You're out engaging in imperialist debauchery again! I swear, Ivan, I can't keep doing this. Stalin wanted the West out, so he said, hey, guess what? I'm blockading all of your supply routes to West Berlin. What are you gonna do about it? I suppose we'll just fly the supplies in.
Yep. Berlin airlift.
Alright, Truman. You in this round. The Berlin airlift was an incredible undertaking and a major success for the Western Allies, and Stalin ended his blockade of West Berlin. His aggressive actions worried the West, but not as much as this did.
Boom. Soviets have developed the atomic bomb.
The Soviet Union had developed their very own atomic bomb. The USA no longer had a nuclear monopoly. The world now knew that if a major war broke out between the two superpowers, it would be more destructive than anyone could imagine. So it was comforting when Stalin came out and said that war between the Soviet Union and the West was unlikely. Oh, wait, inevitable. He said it was inevitable.
It was inevitable.
Hey, you know who I haven't checked
Did
in
you
on
guys
in a
know
while?
that
My
you
good friend
can
China.
hold it
What
down
happened to you? What happened to them was a full-blown civil war that had been going on since 1927. The People's Liberation
And
Army, under the leadership of Mao
boom.
Zedong,
This is gonna be bad for the US.
successfully defeated the Republic of China, who fled to Taiwan. The now communist China and the Soviet Union signed a mutual defense treaty. This was terrible news for the West.
Most populated country just joined the bad guys side, or the communist side, against the US.
But wait, there's more. After the Second World War, Korea was divided along the 38th parallel. In the north, the Soviets set up a communist regime. In the south, America set up an anti-communist regime. Both were led by very sweet-looking old men, but don't let that deceive you. They were both ruthless dictators, and both dreamed of reuniting Korea.
This is gonna talk about the Korean War, of how Soviets got the nuke and then like, hey, you guys can go ahead and go invade.
Korea under their own regime. Now that he had the bomb, Stalin was feeling a little more cocky, and he finally gave Kim permission to attack. The North launched a surprise invasion of the South on June 25th, 1950. With Soviet aid, the North Koreans steamrolled through, taking Seoul in just 3 days and replacing one ruthless dictator with another. The UN were freaking out and quickly created an emergency force made up of troops from 16 countries to defend the South. The West still held Busan and made landings at Incheon near Seoul. They pushed the North Koreans out of Seoul, replacing the ruthless dictator that had replaced the first ruthless dictator with the same ruthless
another
dictator that had
ruthless
previously been replaced by the new ruthless dictator. And the West then continued.
So now they're gonna go up, and China's gonna be like, oh, are they just gonna go through and then when they do, then 500,000 troops come through and push them all back, and then it's a stalemate.
All the way up the Korean Peninsula. At this point, China was getting worried that the UN may just keep going. The US had sent this guy to lead the operation. After winning the Pacific Theater of World War II, General Douglas MacArthur's head was big, and his balls were bigger. He reassured President Truman that there was absolutely no way at all that the Chinese would ever get involved. Meanwhile, 500,000 Chinese troops were crossing into Korea. Nuke 'em. No. Nuke 'em. No! Ah, come on! You're fired. The US considered the nuclear option, but now that the Soviets also had the bomb, they didn't want to risk all-out global destruction. The communists pushed the West right back almost to the exact same spot they had all started from, and they ended up in a stalemate, where they remained until both sides finally agreed to work towards the peace
In 2018. So there's never an official peace treaty until 2018.
settlement in 2018. Back in America, Americans decided they wanted a new president who would be tough on communism, so they elected famed World War II General Eisenhower, who was really hard to draw. It's 1953. Hey, Stalin. How you doing? Oh, he's dead.
Boom, dead.
He had a cerebral hemorrhage.
All his doctors are dead gone because, well, he didn't like them, and now no one wants to treat them because they're scared if they do, then they'll die too.
And his reign of terror kinda came back to bite him in the ass, because he had imprisoned all of his best doctors, and those that were left were too terrified to treat him. The new leader, Nikita Khrushchev, called a meeting and said, "Hey guys, you know how Stalin was imprisoning and murdering us all for doing basically nothing? Yeah, he was kind of a jerk. I'm really not sure how this is news to you." Khrushchev went on a campaign of de-Stalinization. Statues of Stalin were taken down, Stalingrad was renamed, and Khrushchev announced that he wanted the Soviet people to be happy and would allow greater freedom in the Soviet Union. So how did that work out? Well, an uprising in East Germany was brutally suppressed, a revolution in Hungary was brutally suppressed, and demonstrations in Poland were brutally suppressed. Although
So it's saying he tried helping them get free, and they just wanted to leave, and nope. He didn't let that happen.
he did finally allow some mild reforms. Back in the Soviet Union, he permitted more cultural expression, but then began banning stuff based... Banned! Your poetry is really depressing. How
So he's banning stuff on whether he likes it or not.
Western pop culture? Son, remove that disgusting imperialist apparel at once. Shut up, Dad!
It's kind of saying, you start doing stuff that the West likes, you're gonna get,
You
Go.
can't tell me what to do. Well, would you look at that? Turns out he can tell me what to do. The West had initially liked the cut of Khrushchev's jib, but world events soon soured relations even more. The two sides were spying on each other a whole lot throughout the Cold
Yep.
War.
This is mentioned in the spying. I think I can skip it. It's, well, you understand.
Communist kind of became a buzzword thrown around to describe anything people didn't like. Hollywood? Communist. Your next door neighbor's dog? Communist.
Communist. Everything that you don't like is communist became that.
When the grocery store cashier asked
There's one thing that the U.S. had ahead on is technology, and it's going to talk about that.
if you need a bag when you clearly can't carry 10 tubs of baconaise in your hands, communist. But one area in particular where the US had an edge over the Soviet Union was in its espionage technology. In particular, U-2 spy planes flew across Russia carrying out surveillance from the skies. There was a nasty incident in 1960 though, when one was shot
Shot him down, and the Soviets are going to get mad.
down and Khrushchev was furious. Who the hell is this? He's a high-altitude weather enthusiast who flew off course. Okay, that sounds plausible. Wait a minute. Why does he have a gun and a poison needle? Because he's a very naughty high-altitude weather enthusiast. But much to America's concern, the Soviet Union appeared to be ahead in the space race. Everyone
That's not good. Space race, you don't want to have them be ahead, because then it just shows your dominance.
freaked out when Russia launched the world's first satellite, and then they actually sent a man into space. Even worse, there also appeared to be a missile gap in the Soviets' favor, and Khrushchev was so confident that he even allowed the US to set up a technology exhibit in Moscow, attended by a certain Vice President Richard Nixon. Check this out. We have color TV. Yes, but we've been to space and can obliterate you with a massive nuclear arsenal. Check out this vegetable peeler. Tensions increased further when both sides upgraded their atomic bombs to hydrogen
This is very bad and scary for the world.
bombs. And after West Germany was allowed
This
to
is
join
when
NATO in
everyone got
1955,
scared.
Khrushchev set up the Defensive Warsaw Pact, strengthening the military.
So since NATO formed, and then they're like, oh, well, finally Berlin joins NATO, we gotta do something against it.
Ties between the Soviet Union and its satellite states. In 1960, Americans decided they wanted a new president who would be tough on communism, so they elected John F. Kennedy. The Soviet Union was advancing its technology, but it was also bleeding its coffers dry, and all of the money was going towards the military, not the people. Life under communism
So people didn't like that, and well, find out what happened.
was still as hard as ever, and Berlin remained a thorn in the Soviet side. The contrast between the economically prosperous West and the struggling East was clearer day by day, and East Berliners were still able to freely travel to the West. Now, many of them were deciding to stay there. Millions defected to West Germany via West Berlin, causing Eastern factories
Had to give it a like. I like his videos. I watch him a lot.
to lose workers and taking a heavy toll on the economy. Soviet leaders decided this couldn't continue any longer. First, Khrushchev tried this. Leave West Berlin, or else what? Or else I'll be really mad at you. Yeah, no, we're gonna stay. Listen, man,
Nope.
West Berlin is ours, East Berlin is yours. That's just how it is. Kennedy felt pretty good about a show of American results, but wait a second, did you catch that? Let's replay it.
East Berlin is yours.
Uh-oh, Kennedy
That's
just
not
told
good to
Khrushchev
say.
that the
That
USA
means
wouldn't
he's just
interfere in what the
saying-
Soviets did with their
He's saying that anything that the Soviets did, USA wouldn't do anything about.
section of Berlin. So Khrushchev
Not
came up with
good.
a new idea. We're gonna build a wall, and it's gonna be a big, beautiful wall, and it's gonna keep out all the Mexicans. This one's gonna keep in East Berliners. Oh, sorry. It's gonna keep in all the Mexicans.
It's gonna keep in all the East Berliners. Sorry.
On August 13, 1961, Berliners woke up to find their city divided into two, with barbed wire and guards blocking the border between east and west. Over time, a wall was constructed throughout the city.
And people didn't like this wall, families torn apart, and it's just because, well, they didn't want to be people crossing over. They need workers.
Families were torn apart. Thousands would risk their lives escaping over the wall, and hundreds would die trying. To the despair of Berliners, the West were unable to do anything about it. But the wall did put on full display the failure of the communist system. As Kennedy said, democracy is not perfect, but we have never had to put a wall up to...
I like this speech. Never had to put a wall up. I agree. We never had to put a wall up, but to keep our people in, because we've always been free.
Keep our people in. As part of the agreement between the two sides, U.S. diplomats were still allowed to travel to East Berlin,
but sometimes, like, guards didn't really understand, and the U.S. doesn't like when the guards didn't
Suddenly,
listen.
East Berlin crossing guards started giving them the business, and Kennedy was like, nah-uh. In October, the U.S. rolled tanks up to the crossing point at Checkpoint Charlie as a...
Alright, this is, like, the bridge of World War III almost happened here. If it was even further than this, we would have done the world. Like, everyone was scared. They were like, oh no. When Soviet rolled up their tanks, they're like, oh man, this is not good. We're all almost nuclear war dead.
Of strength.
We all
the
would have been
Soviets
dead.
did the same, and the two were in a standoff. They stayed like that for 16 hours, and the world braced for nuclear Armageddon. Thankfully, though, Kennedy called Khrushchev directly and was like, hey man, this is getting way too hot. How about you back your tanks up by an inch and we'll do the same? Sounds good. Okay, how about you back
So they keep backing them up, and
your tanks up by another inch, and we'll follow suit. All right. Hey, do you want to do another inch? And they both very slowly inched away from the apocalypse. Phew, let's hope that's the biggest crisis of my presidency. It wasn't.
Part 2? You guys want to do part 2? Alright, well, you can do part 2 next time. I'm gonna have to cut this short. I have to go take a shower and get out of here. I hope you like this video. I'm gonna do a community post sometime about doing part 2, but don't forget, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and, well, leave a like on the community post for part 2, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.